Hey, Bill, welcome to the show.
Hi, Ed.
So let's get started with how you got your start in the industry.
How I got my start in the industry was I was a computer science major way back and graduated college in 1980, but I also took part-time jobs to pay for my college, and I ended up working in retail. And I really liked both the customer service part, and also I've advanced up to be a manager of different retail locations, and I really loved it. And I knew someone who had a funeral home, and the funeral director that I knew well, he was always lamenting about what bad service he would get because he would call upon one of the other funeral homes in the city that he was in, and of course they wouldn't give him his best car, his best driver. It was his competition, and he always got shoddy service at best, and his name was attached to that. And what he did is he went out to a limousine service, and since that was their main business, all of a sudden everything worked. The cars were clean, the drivers were well dressed, polite, because after all, that was the limo company's main business, and customer service was part of what they did. So that's originally where I got the idea to work in the limousine business.
Gotcha. Okay. And when did you start Red Bank Limo?
Actually, I started in 1987, and at the time, I didn't know what I know now back then. So actually, when I first started, I used to call my business Celebrate Limousine. And I thought, boy, that's really a cool name, and it was different and unique. And it wasn't until many years later, since I don't do I don't do proms, I don't have any Hummers, I don't have any of the exotic vehicles, I'm mostly corporate. And one of my corporate travelers had said, where are you located? And I said, Red Bank. And he said, oh, you must do a lot of parties and weddings. And I said, no, we're mostly all corporate. And he had said, boy, I wouldn't think of calling Celebrate for a corporate service other than my friend had referred me to you. And it dawned on me that our name was wrong. We pretty much said what we don't do. When I changed it over to Red Bank, people locally who were in the area knew that it was a local business, and people from other parts of the country just think of it as a name. But changing my name has really helped define who we are and who we're not.
So why don't you talk a little bit more about that and the importance of positioning yourself properly in the market?
Yeah, I think the key to any company, whether it's a limousine or any other business, is to know what it is that your customers want, provide that, and be able to talk about that. We all deal with people calling and asking, what's your price? What's your best price? And unfortunately, people have been dealing with these Groupons and daily deals and thinking that they should get somebody's product or service for below cost. I'm really adverse to any of those kind of things because as a business owner, if I give away a $100 sale and somebody buys it from Groupon for $50, and I as a business, I get half of that, I get $25, that $50 customer that I'm acquiring is never going to pay full price. So the next time, if they do choose to travel with you again, they're going to expect that $50 rate because that's what you set the price as. If you go back to them and say, well, our regular rate is $100, well, they're going to be loyal, but not to me. They're going to be loyal to the discounted Groupon one. So I strongly believe that you have to maintain your price, and the best way to maintain your price is know what it is that your customers want. And the way that you find out what your customers want is you ask them. If you were one of my customers, Ed, I'd say, hey, Ed, you're one of my best customers. If I were to talk to somebody else, what is it about us that gets you to keep coming back to us 10, 12, 15 years? And by doing that, you'll find information that you may not have known. You might have thought that they like you because of one reason, and it could be quite differently. So in our experience, the three things that our customers keep telling us is they like that we're on time, they like that we have friendly local drivers, and they like that they get there safely. So now when somebody's calling about a price, I ask them, have you traveled with a company like ours before? And what it does is it takes them off the path of cheap to say, oh, wait, there's differences. And then we explain these are the three things that our passengers who have been with us 10, 12, and 15 years have told us that they keep coming back. And it differentiates yourself because many of the limo companies that I've called just a mystery shop all just bark at a price, and that's it. So what they're doing is they're not differentiating themselves for anybody to have a reason to say your company is better than the next one. Because after all, if all things are the same, people are going to pick the cheapest price.
Absolutely. In a roundabout way, gave a great way to figure out a company's unique selling proposition. So what are some other ways that you found to help identify how a company can differentiate themselves in the market besides speaking to the customer base?
Well, again, you have to, once you define who it is that you're serving, I believe it's better to have a niche that you do really, really well rather than trying to be everything to everybody. Another limo friend of mine has 5 different vehicles, but they're 5 different vehicles. There's a town car, a party bus, a van, an SUV, and all these different kind of cars, he's not really defining who he is. He's a little bit of this, he's a little bit of that, but he's not really great in any one area. He's just all over the place trying to get business. And I think companies have to either define, like corporate is a whole different world than leisure. For me, I like corporate better because our travelers travel with us 50 or 100 times a year, and the corporate people who are, in my world, are more affluent tend to tell their friends and other neighbors and other colleagues who are also travelers about us. So if I had this all to do over again, I would certainly pick my niche, which is corporate and maybe more on the higher affluent side.
Okay. And one thing you said in the pre-interview is that you never discount your rates. Give me a sample conversation of a person calling in asking for a rate and then asking for a discount. How do you handle that objection?
Sure. Okay, so that's a big question that every business, again, including limo companies, get. What's your rate? So what we do is we always want to be honest and upfront in our pricing, but we try to find out a little bit more, because if you're calling 5 other limo companies and everybody's telling you the rate and there's no differentiation, again, they go for cheapest price. So if Ed, if you were calling for the first time and wanted to know our rate, I would always use my name and always try to use the customer's or the prospect's name in the conversation. So I'd say, "Oh, hi, my name is Bill. What was your name?" You, of course, would say Ed. I'd say, "Oh, Ed, sure, I can help you," which is, again, is what many companies never bother to say, because that's really what people want, is to be helped. And then to try to find out a little bit more, like, oh, somebody is asking about rate, you may ask, well, are you traveling for business? Are you traveling for fun? And maybe it's a fun trip. Maybe they're going to Aruba. Oh, Aruba, it's a great place. I haven't been there before. Have you been there? And what happens is you're building up a dialogue and getting to know the person, because I would rather do business with somebody I know, I like, and I trust than somebody who's cheap. So by having those conversations, or maybe it's on the other hand, maybe somebody's a business traveler. You say, oh, well, most of our clients are business travelers, and they like that we're always on time. In fact, we have an on-time or free guarantee, because if I were going to a business trip, I wouldn't want to have to worry about the car not showing up. And as far as price, we tell them our price. Now, we have my best traveler last year traveled with us over 100 times a year. I'm charging him the same exact rate that I charge somebody who travels with us once and we never see again. So for the people who say, well, I'm going to the airport, I'm going back, what can you do for price? We tell people, listen, we're going to charge everybody exactly the same. And what happens is, if I start discounting my rates, well, maybe I'm not paying my driver as well. Maybe I'm not maintaining my car as well. Maybe I'm not carrying the right insurance, but there's always reasons why companies or people one is cheaper than the other. So when it comes time to going to your important business trip, or more importantly, your vacation, how comfortable are you knowing you just booked with the cheapest guy out there? If they don't show, then there's no value. Or if they're not local, maybe they're not from here, maybe they're from Jersey City or Queens, and they don't know where Monmouth County is. It's a risk that you're taking. And the difference of going with us compared to a cheaper rate isn't really that much a difference in dollars, but certainly it is for peace of mind. And I also explain that we're not the most expensive, because I wouldn't want to pay the most expensive, but we're certainly not the cheapest. We charge market rate, but everything works. And if you think about it, as a consumer, nobody wants it. That word expensive sounds like you're overpaying. And on the other hand, cheap is different than low price. So when you say you're not cheap, most people align themselves with that. Right. The other part of the equation is you have to have regular training with your drivers to be very specific in what it is that you expect and how they can deliver that service. If you leave it up to chance, that's what will happen. So we have regular team meetings where we bring people in and we talk about different parts of the service. So that my idea is it's almost going to be a consistent level of service. When you go to the Marriott, you get the same experience. I'm a loyal Marriott customer because I know when I go to Marriott what I'm going to expect. I don't expect the cheapest rate. I pay maybe a little bit more, but I know what my expectations are. So we as business owners have to make sure that whatever it is that we promise, that we're delivering. So it's important with your staff to be part of the service that you're delivering.
Gotcha. Okay. And how do you maintain that level of service when you're not looking? When you're out of the office and you're out doing something else, you're out networking or at a client meeting, how do you ensure that that level of service is being given across the board at all times?
Well, a good example is tomorrow morning I'm going to Mexico for a week, and I actually travel 5 weeks a year now on vacation. Luckily for me, my wife's retired, and I've been doing this for a long time, and you have to really almost be obsessive about how you do things day to day to day. And people get into a habit. They'll get into a habit of either doing right things, or if you don't have that obsessiveness and you let it to chance, you don't know what you're going to expect. But I'm confident during this next week that everything's going to flow just as smooth as I am while I was here. So it all gets back to training. You have to train the person initially. You have to encourage them. Or if you're a parent, think of the analogy of you want your son or your daughter to do well in life. So you're going to encourage them to do better. You're going to let them know when they didn't do something right. But overall, you want them to know that you're looking out for their best interest. So not that my employees are children, but my employees are probably more important to my business than I am, because they're the ones who are interacting with my customer. And if you hear something great from a customer, if somebody's kind enough to call and say, hey, John did a really great job, and here's why. Well, then you broadcast that over to all of your employees, because everybody wants that recognition. And if John did a great job, he should get recognition. If it's something that didn't go well, then you talk to that employee once, you never say it again, and you have to be very specific. Not that the employee is a bad person, but that specific thing could have been done better, and here's how you could do it better. But you have to get the whole team to sort of be on board with the same philosophy. And I think as a smaller company, I probably have more control than some of the largest companies. But you think of Nordstrom's, they have department stores all over, and all of them give exemplary service. And again, it gets back to the training that we have. So training is a worthwhile investment. You can't just start a driver, set them free, and hope that they do well.
Gotcha. Okay. So, Bill, talk to me a little bit about marketing. What is your view on marketing and sales, and how do you bring in corporate accounts?
Okay. So marketing, I don't do any what I call hope advertising. Hope advertising is you put an ad in a newspaper, you hope somebody sees your ad, you hope that they call you, and you hope that they do business with you. The likelihood of getting a corporate traveler, of putting a local paper, just doesn't work. So how do you get your corporate travelers? Well, once you have a corporate traveler, they probably are in the same sphere as themselves. For us, a lot of our travelers work up in the Wall Street area. They're bankers, and they take this ferry into Manhattan every day, and so they're around other people like themselves. So first off, before you ask anybody for any referral, you have to be worth that referral. So you can't meet a new customer and say, hey, tell me everybody who you know so that they can do business with me, because that's just, people won't do that. So what you have to do is you have to be consistently delivering service plus one. Like, obviously, we have chilled water for our travelers in the winter time. I'll have my drivers, I give them these Dunkin' Donut cards, where when somebody's getting up to Newark Airport, before they get there, the driver will turn around and say, oh, by the way, Mr. Jones, I have something for you. And I'll say, what's this? And I'll say, well, after you get your luggage checked in and you're waiting 45 minutes for your flight, go enjoy a cup of coffee on me. I make it from the driver, not from me, because that bonds it better. So anything time that you could be just a little bit different, a little bit better, works. If it's a leisure traveler, if they're coming home, we have our drivers say, oh, do you need any perishables? Do you need to get any milk or eggs so you don't have to get up early in the morning? It's those little touches that differentiates yourself. It doesn't take a whole lot. It just takes figuring out what it is that could let the customer know that you truly do care about them and that you want to get them to come back to you again. So corporate, I think with the corporate is a different world. Corporate, you have to be out there and you have to be talking all about how you make it easy for travelers. We get many calls from assistants who are making reservations for their executives. And again, often they're looking at price. And what we do is we say, listen, we have the same goal as you do. Because if you make a reservation for your traveler, for your executive, and the car doesn't show or the driver's real sketchy or something goes wrong, your executive is going to remember you, but not in a good way. But we know if everything goes flawlessly, our cars are clean, our drivers are polite, professional, we show up on time, if there's a change, it's never an issue, we're always there for you, then your executive's going to like you better. And we know that we have to do that because if it's going easy, you're more likely to call us again because you're not going to have any complaints. You're not going to have your executive giving you a hard time because there was a problem with the limo guy. So we have the same interests. So whenever you can align yourself with the person who's making a reservation, I think that's different than what they may be hearing from the companies who are offering a lower price.
Okay. And in your marketing, are you using advertisements? Are you using postcards, sales letters? What exactly are you using to generate the leads?
We do a few things. What we do is we have a very specific niche area in a town that's called Rumson. It's very, very affluent. I mean, in Rumson, your real estate taxes are about $65,000 or $70,000 a year just in real estate taxes. So it's a pretty affluent area. So that's our core thing. So I would rather target it toward that. So what we do is we have a letter that we put out, and we have it separately addressed to each person. It's not a generic postcard. It's not to occupants. It's actually made out to that person. We have a list of people who live along certain streets, and we tell them about us. We tell them about us in a way that's going to be beneficial. We try not to say me, but we rather say this is how you would be benefiting. This is how you would have that. because that's really what people care about. And we talked to them about, we were lucky enough to, a couple years ago in 2010, be picked as Operator of the Year by the Limousine Chauffeur Transportation magazine. We've won a bunch of safety excellence awards. So we talk about stuff that other people around them have chosen. And for that one area, again, we really, really go after the thing of shopping local. Because people, I think if all things considered, I'd rather do business with somebody who's local than somebody I don't know. So those seem to have worked pretty well for us. And again, this is our core customer who travels 50 or 100 times a year. So the whole goal in all this is just bringing the customer once. Now, the only time I ever discount is sometimes when I'm soliciting, I will give somebody a $25 gift card. Now, rather than giving a coupon or a discount, because both of those sound cheap, if I get a coupon, I don't care about it. But if somebody gives you a gift card, wow, that's valuable. And you have to make it worthwhile. If you give someone a 10%, we don't know what that means. What's 10%? Is it a 10% off $50 or $500? But if you give them an actual valued amount, in our case, $25 gift card, and the only fine print on it is we say one per client, and it never expires. Because I don't care if you travel with me next week or next year. I want you to try us once. By giving the $25 gift card, I give away all my profit on the first trip. But what it does is it changes it, because all of a sudden, the first time that we're picking up these people, they're liking us better, because after all, we just gave them $25. And it takes away the price barrier. And more importantly, it takes it away that you're not going to acquire a new customer at a cheap rate. You're telling the person, this is my rate, but I'm giving you $25 off your first trip as this gift card because I want you to try us. So they know going into it that it's your first trip, you're giving them $25, but they also know that the future trips will be at the regular price. So you don't get into that Groupon deal where people come in at a low price and expect that all the time.
Okay. And let's talk about referrals for a second. How much of your business would you say is coming from referrals? And do you have an actual system in place to generate those referrals?
Well, for a while I was thinking about that. As a referral program, I was going to say, listen, if you bring in this person or if you bring in that person, this is what you'll get. But I don't know if that's the best way. I think it's better that when people call us and we don't know who they are, we ask how they found us. And often we'll say, oh, did anybody refer you to us? Because if they did, we just want to say thank you to that person. So let's say you refer someone to me, Ed, and I know that. What I'll generally do is I'll follow it up. I'll give you a call and say, hey, Ed, Mr. Jones just called and made a reservation with us. I really, really appreciate that you thought of us. That was really good. Now, what I've sometimes done is I've given them a gift card to a local restaurant, or I've said, I know you travel for business. Well, next time you and your wife are traveling, let me take care of the trip for you. And I'm very generous because the person who's kind enough to give a referral, if you give them $150 worth of value, boy, they're gonna like you.
Absolutely, so, reward the behavior.
Yeah. The other thing that we do is there's one of these restaurants that happens to have a lot of high-end, really, really high-end customers. So the restaurant owner, when he travels, whether it's to the airport or whether it's to New York City, he doesn't pay anything at all. And the amount that you pay in traditional advertising is pretty high. By giving this one person who has influence, he has a lot of very high-end customers, such a generous offer, he refers a lot of people to us. And he refers people to us that we couldn't get by traditional advertising. So it's a pretty generous kind of offer that we give to him, but he reciprocates. And whenever you get connected, if you make it too much like you're the same as everybody else, it's not as important to the person. But if you do something really, really special for that person, then they tend to reciprocate.
It's important what you just described, leveraging and doing joint ventures and alliances. What other groups would you say you have kind of alliances or doing a joint venture with to drive leads into your business?
Sure. So we have one of the companies I'm thinking of is it's called the Atlantic Club, which is again a high-end sports and fitness club, and they have a spa there. But again, if you look at the parking lot of the Atlantic Club, it's all Land Rovers, Lexuses, Mercedes. So it's the similar kind of client. And in that case, what we do is we give anybody who joins the Atlantic Club a $25 Red Bank Limo gift card. And on the other hand, what Atlantic Club does for us is all of our clients, they give them a 1-month free membership. Now, a membership at the Atlantic Club, their basic level is $100. So what we're doing is, in essence, we're giving you, Ed, $100 value. Now, whether you use it or not doesn't really matter. It matters that we're giving you a gift, and the gift has to be worth something. If somebody gives you $2 off, nobody cares about that. So you have to make it generous enough. So what will happen is, as our customers try out the Atlantic Club, and become members of them, the Atlantic Club is saying, wow, these are customers we never would have had before, because we have the same level customer. We're just serving them different areas. And then they do the same for us too, because people say, oh, the Atlantic Club referred me. So since the Atlantic Club has a high reputation and they're referring business over to us, the people already come into it expecting that we're going to be the same level as the Atlantic Club. So you have to get that synergy. Not everybody's a good partner for what we do. There's another day spa that we do locally in the area too, and we do the same kind of reciprocation. It works out pretty well.
Got it. And how do you set up that relationship with that corresponding business owner? Do you cold call them? Do you approach them at a networking event? Do you write them a letter?
Well, sometimes it's networking events. I'm involved in a lot of chambers, and I got to say the chambers themselves, I don't get a whole lot of business because the chamber people generally are saying, hey, I'm going to the airport. Can you get me there for $20 or something ludicrous like that? But there are a few select people that have a connection to those perfect customers or perfect companies. And what I would do if I were at a networking event, and I say, for instance, I didn't know the people from the Atlantic Club, but I knew that there was a representative there, I would try to introduce myself and say, I've heard a lot of good things about the Atlantic Club. Say, well, why don't we have lunch sometime on me, my treat? I want to know more about the Atlantic Club. So if one of my customers is asking about it, I'll be able to give them the best information. I don't ask for anything in return. I just say, I'm going to try to do something for you. And what happens is now they're going into a meeting, hey, instead of them being prospecting to try to get new customers, here's a guy who's saying, hey, how can I give you customers? So whenever you, in this case, whenever I say, well, how about I gave everybody who goes to your spa, who joins up, who's thinking about joining up, a $25 Red Bank Limo gift card. There's no cost, or actually they normally will ask, is there any cost for that? We say, no, there's no cost. We're just doing it as extra added value for your customers. So now we're giving them something of value that they can give out to the customers, and again, it's at no cost. So what they normally will do is then the reciprocation kicks in, and they say, well, if you can do that for us, what can we do? And in the case of the Atlantic Club, they thought of a $100 gift card to give our customers was something that worked, and it did. It worked out quite well.
Very nice. I saw on your website that you guys actually grew through some acquisitions.
Yeah, I years ago, there was two smaller companies that the problem with the smaller companies, the really smaller ones, is sometimes the people are overwhelmed. They don't have time to step back and run the company. Sometimes they're out driving and they're working in the company instead of working. I rarely drive at all anymore. Not that I mind that. I once in a while I will, just to keep in touch with my customers. But I try to run the business and figure out how we could do things better. And then I have two people who answer the phones for me, and I also have my drivers. So they're actually doing the work. But I try to think, how can I do this better? For instance, Yelp has been something that has worked out really well for us. And if somebody is shopping a price, we have really, really high reviews in Yelp. So if somebody's shopping a price, I may say to a prospect, of course I want you to travel with us. And I'm going to tell you that we're the best company for you. But there may be other people who say that. So before you go, know who it is that you're dealing with. Look at a site like Yelp, which gives real customer reviews. And you'll see some are really great and some are really bad. And as you look at that, you'll say, boy, there are differences. And I would suggest, if you could take price out of the equation for a minute, who seems like they're serving customers best, and that's probably the best company for you. Coincidentally, they go to Yelp, and we have high reviews, and so Yelp has been something that has worked out really, really well. And people, I think the other part of it, people don't understand that customers are checking you out before they make that initial call or the initial inquiry. They're knowing a little bit about you. Because of the internet and all the reviews, they can know about you before they decide who it is that they're going to call. So they've already checked you out. I read somewhere that 65% of people now check out a company before they make their first interaction. So the things you have out there have to be presenting yourself in a good way. We use Facebook a lot, but we don't do Facebook a lot to sell. We never sell any packages. We never do anything like that. But more or less, we're talking about the local area. We're talking about different community programs. We're talking about other businesses that seem to be doing well, because people aren't used to somebody doing something kind and generous for them, and then they reciprocate. We had a travel agent who recently was on Facebook, and I knew them a little bit, and I said, hey, if you're going away to take a cruise, why not go to a local professional travel agent, go to Cruise Planners, and I put their link in it. That day, I got the owners of the companies were like, wow, that was really good. By the way, we have some customers who are going out. So you always have to give first to get back in return. And if you sort of get that reputation of being somebody who's giving, it'll come back to you many times over.
God, that's great. Let's talk about some mistakes that you've made in the business. What's been the biggest mistake?
Well, for a while, I don't have this problem anymore, but I did have problems finding employees, and I didn't know really. I think sometimes I filled spots without really giving it. We use Craigslist, which some people like and some people don't, for finding new employees. But the thing I like about Craigslist is you can put as much information as you can, and the more and more details you have of what your expectations are, there's going to be some people that are going to say, well, I don't want to do that much. So you're going to get the people that you don't want to consider not to even reply. But with the interview process, after I interview somebody, if they seem great, we go ahead and we do full background checks. Of course, most limo companies do the motor vehicle check, which is what we do. We also do a nationwide criminal background check, and we also do a nationwide sexual predator check, because I don't know what a sexual predator looks like, but I don't want to find out after there's an incident. So by doing those background checks helps us to clear that part of it. And then I personally train every driver. I go out on the first day with him and just show him what it is. It's like a show and tell. I show him what it is, because the quicker I can have them adopt into our system, the quicker they're going to be able to be with our customers, and the customers will see the same kind of level. And it also lets me know, because people in an interview may behave one way, and then when they're out there, perhaps a different one. So you could actually see how people interact after the interview with the customers. But again, I think my employees are really by far my biggest asset.
Got it. Okay. And what would be some advice you'd give a small, like say, 1 or 2 or 3 car operator?
Well, if you knew, I think the best thing to do is talk to other limo companies along the same way. Offer to help them in case they get overbooked, but try to find some people who have been around for a long time. I like doing that. I've been doing this 26 years now, and like I write for LCT magazine. I try to give my suggestions of whatever has worked for me in all these years to share with other people. But I think if you're new to it, you have to get some sort of friends who you can get into business. One of my friends, and I think you may have already mentioned about Doug Swartz, who and Arthur Messina, but Doug Swartz, when he was new, he would go out to other operators and he would interview them, and he would post their interviews. So automatically Doug was in the line with some of the top industry people because he was interviewing them. So it raised his stature. But you have to sort of get alliances, because you can never do everything yourself. So you have to get other people who you can collaborate with and get to know better. And going to limo shows is really important too, because then you can actually see the people rather than just somebody that you don't know. Because you want to be careful if you give away a customer to someone else that they're going to be served well, because you could ruin a whole relationship.
Okay. Do you do any farming work locally?
We do mostly local. Now, I do something that's probably different than most, is I don't do a whole lot of outbound affiliate work. And I know that many companies say that, there's a huge profit center in that. But I'm worried, because if I give somebody to some operator out of Chicago, and that operator doesn't serve my customer well or has an arrogant driver or something like that, I may lose that relationship. And that relationship is golden to me. So I'm very, very leery of giving one of my customers to someone who may not do the same job. And I know probably I can make a few dollars by referring out to that. But I'm under the assumption that I'd rather keep what I have and keep that person as a lifetime value of the whole relationship of the customer than making $20 on them and possibly ruining a relationship. Again, I'm a very obsessive person, so I like being in control, and I don't know that I'd have the control if I did that.
Right. Got it. I understand. Okay. And do you do any farm-in work or farm-out work for any large operators in the area?
No, not really. We mostly stay with the local companies, that are really in this area. We help them when they're overbooked, and they help us, and that way it gives us better inventory of when we do get those peak times. So, of course, for us, Monday mornings are our craziest time, because that's when all the business guys go out.
Got it.
But there are people along the way, like, again, thinking of Doug Swartz, I refer people, if they're out on Long Island, I refer them out to him because I know him, and I know that they're going to be well taken care of. But you just have to be careful that whoever you're referring them to, that they're going to do a good job.
Okay. Well, how do you approach a local competitor or what may seem like a competitor to set up a friendly relationship to help each other with overflow work?
Well, I think the best thing to do is personally invite someone for lunch. Like, there's a local guy here, it's called London Taxi, and he has those old-fashioned London cabs, and he mostly does local stuff. He doesn't want to go to the airport. He doesn't want to go to New York City. He wants to do all local stuff. I don't do the local, like, cab kind of stuff. I do more to the airports, to the city, business waiting returns. So he was a new member of the chamber, one of the Chamber of Commerce's that I belong to, so I reached out to him, and I said, Mario, great thing you joined the chamber. again, why don't we go out for lunch, and so I could get to know you and your business a little bit better. And he was sort of brand new. But in talking about that, now if I have one of my business travelers who needs a 10 or 15-minute trip, it's not something that I could serve them well, but I could refer to Mario. So I started giving Mario work and his local stuff. Now his local people who did want to go to the airport and he doesn't want or can't do that, he referred back. So I think that you have to always be the person who's reaching out to the other person first. Now, unfortunately, there are people who are competitive to a fault. They'll never, ever collaborate with anybody. They're, ruthless competitors. And that's probably somebody that you don't want to do business with anyhow. But there's also really, really a lot of good people out there, too. So you have to, it's like any other relationship. You have to see what that other person is like.
Gotcha. Okay. And one last question before we wrap up. Do you have any tools or resources or anything cool that you think a new operator should know, or a small to mid-sized operator?
Yeah, I think you have to constantly, again, I've been doing this a long time, but I'm constantly trying to figure out, I love change. I love, how can I do this better than how I have been doing it? So I'm an avid, I read everything that I can about people who have been successful. Every year I go out there's a customer service seminar out in Michigan, so I go away for 4 days to the seminar, and people say, Bill, why do you go out away from your family and business for 4 days? Because I come back with even better ideas. So you have to always be open to change, because change is going to happen with or without you. So if you can constantly be filling your head of little tidbits of pieces from what you read from one person, or there's another guy, Jeffrey Gitomer, who I listen to. He has like a weekly kind of a video kind of thing. But you have to always be learning from other people around you. Otherwise, you're going to get passed by the other people who are out there learning. And we've been lucky enough where we've been plussing like about 20% since 2008. And that's when the economy really tanked. And I'm wondering, why would that be? And I think looking back at it, a lot of corporate travelers, when the economy tanked, their accounting department said, hey, go look for a cheaper way for transportation. So we had all these calls from people who we never would have had because they were with another company. But then when we have that conversation with the assistant, how we're going to best serve their executive, it's been a really windfall for us, because we got a lot of people who we wouldn't have had before. And then again, that was about the same time that we changed our name over to the Red Bank Limo, which is a well-known local town here. So people knew that we were local.
That's great advice. Well, Bill, this has been a pretty awesome interview. I mean, you are a marketing machine, so it's always nice to talk to another guy that is obsessed with marketing. So I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, and I think all of us have to share. We have to, if I have an idea that I could share and help someone else, great. If somebody else has an idea that I could learn something from, and that's, I say this all the time, and I think I might have sent it to you in an email, but a rising tide lifts all boats. It was just John F. Kennedy, and it's true. You have to be, inclusive. You have to see how you could do to be a good, another fellow business owner, and you help each other, and everybody benefits.
That's great. Thank you very much, Bill. I appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks, Ed.